Mindustry PvP. I'm Larifeticus. This is a pretty good game I played a few days ago. Lots of action going to be happening the whole time. Going to fight a lot of decent players. Going to do a lot of unit touching. I'll manage to hand off my economy to other players and just do army stuff the whole time. It gets real fun. So a amusing thing about the context here. The game right before this, I got whooped on. And the way that happened was I spawned in sort of the middle of the top, and I had a player to my left and a player to my right. I looked at the player to my right, and they were putting mechanical drills on lead and copper, and they'd turn their mono factory into a flare factory. So you see a player do that, and you immediately forget that they exist. That is someone that is not a threat and should be ignored. They're gone. So the player on my left, I recognize a bit, named Googly Goo. And the reason I recognize this is because the YouTube has this analytic stuff that it's not actually valuable, but it's like, ooh, curiosity. My numbers don't go up, whatever. One of the things you can look at is the stuff that people watch your videos, they also watch these other videos or channels. And so Googly Goo has a YouTube channel, and he's got one very popular Mindustry video and some MechWarrior videos. That's cool. Like, MechWarrior is a cool game too. I used to play MechWarrior 2 all the time. That was a long ass time ago though. I guess it's up to like MechWarrior 5 now. So I spent the whole time fighting him, and we had some back and forth. And I was just about to ramp up my combat strength and finish off that minor conflict. And the player that I was ignoring had taken his flares, and he hit a core right by him because it was away from the part where I was worried about stuff happening. And like undermined my entire big unit factory complex that I was working on. So I got knocked out by absolute scrap by being caught off surprise when he used his flares decently once. I made up for it by immediately on the Fallen team, I started building up Fallen near him, and I managed to eliminate that scrap player and get my revenge. That was some of the big fun. Moral victory, all that. So that was the game before this game. That was the setup here. So Googly's still on, Taron's around, rznant? Without seeing it written down, I have no confidence in actually getting it right. RZ, and then more letters. That player is around in this game too. People that know what they're doing. So, out of curiosity earlier today, I went looking to see like maybe Googly Goo had some other stuff somewhere else, and I had to go through like profiles and links and whatever. He's a Twitch person. So he's been playing on my server on Twitch, and there's like videos left behind of it, and I managed to find the video of this game and the one before it. So I'm gonna put that in like a link in the description or something, and then people can watch like both sides of what's going on here. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, everything up to this point in this game is pretty normal. All my build order stuff that I want, I actually have one more steam generator than I'd like to. Taking the second hex is behind schedule. and it's behind schedule because I forgot to set my ground factory to make daggers, which is like the most common thing that I forget to do and do wrong. Oh well. You don't set it to daggers, and it doesn't accept lead and silicon. And I think I set the rally, but I didn't set it to make daggers. No excuse. So I'm a little bit behind. Like, I should have had this hex open up and ready to go like 90 seconds earlier. And that's why I had extra time to do a little bit more in the first hex. Oh, there's people down there talking stuff too. Well. Yeah, Taron is a little self-conscious about being the Washington Generals of Eviction, because all the games that I play that are like entertaining and worth showing off, he happens to be in them, but he also tends to, I manage to get the best of him fairly often in those ones. I guess when I win, it's interesting. And there are metrics that show that people like the videos that I win better than the videos that I lose, which it seems absurd that I could even get that information out of stuff, but whatever. So yeah, he makes interesting games. That's a good thing. Okay, so I'm not real close to any other players. So in like the first tactical decision point, I am going for the greedy unit factory and not the rush unit factory. The rush unit factory is daggers. And so that is expecting all of my initial silicon, like half of my initial silicon, to go straight into daggers to get used to, go rush people and take more space. This one is the longer term eco version where it makes a pulsar, which is useful for both taking space and putting shields on things. It makes one poly and it makes one mono factory. And so I'll boost my lead and copper a little bit, and I'll start being able to ramp up build speed. But my combat capability right now is going to be diminished until I get to some other factories. And this one's another pretty greedy decision where instead of going for graphite or some of the other resources, I'm going for the get some platinum and some glass and some whatever else. But it's also like, the reason it's greedy is because I'm putting this in my first power plant slot. I also have just a plain 2-diff that builds a lot faster and is cheaper, but that doesn't start getting me platinum and some other things. So I took a glance over at Googly Goo. He is spreading towards me, and he's got no combat stuff up there in the glance. So that's like, all right, let's start putting pressure. Even if that attack fails, and I'm sure it probably will, it's just, I mean, if I give it some attention, I might get away with something here. That looks like it's going well. Yeah. It's certainly drawn his attention. He's struggling, and okay, yeah. So I don't actually need that hex or to hold it. That is a distraction and a stalling mover. Slow down his economy. Keep him, distract. He's now gonna spend more time, building defense. And if I just, don't attack him anymore, then he doesn't need any more defense. But that he's putting in the time to build it, or at least he should have that reaction, then that helps me out. So throw in a couple graphite. These do not need the titanium belt, but if I'm going to merge them together, then that's it does need it. It just barely fills up like one regular belt to have one of those going. But if I put the titanium belt, then I can come back later with an overdrive or something and not clog out the belt. Though I have to be careful overdriving these things if I do an external water, because if the overdrive doesn't cause the external water, then it actually is less productive. So I've decided I want to start attacking, so I'm going for my default choice to make a lot of army quickly. These self-contained flare factories. Needs a coal and a sand, and once you place it down, it's got its own internal power and its own internal silicon. Once you get it started, you could literally just disconnect it and leave it there, and not even brownouts would stop it. Additional feature of those things is it's got built-in plumbing to give it phase. And so I can drop a like super cheap and basic phase factory and like a laser drill of thorium and sand will make enough phase to power 2 overdrives. So I build these things in pairs. I wanted to put the second in the pair over on the other side with the first one, but the actual shapes for the coal were wrong relative to the other stuff that I built. I'm also expecting flares out of him, so put a little security scatter right on there. Yeah, so he's got himself a little fort now. Mostly hails and some scatters. So the tip that's going to come out of this is, now that we've got real-time strategy controls, you can't leave the back of a fort completely open. I'll just fly over it and shoot the core, and you shoot the core, you take everything. Yeah, I don't want that forward base getting closer to me. Again, I always want to be fighting in stuff that he's working on, because that means that my stuff's being left alone. No, if he was to the point of being able to do sort of split attention things, and maybe set up building somewhere and doing an attack elsewhere, then that would totally get me. I don't have that much attention or multitasking to go around. And another thing about these factories, like I'm at the flare cap with what I've only got, like I don't have a high unit cap yet, even without putting the phase in. But I put the phase in, these things make flares so fast that I can do a unit cap size attack every minute or two, and that really knocks people's attention off of building up economically and towards putting a shield and defenses on every core and playing really cautiously. And that's me being left alone to do whatever I want, which is usually making it worse. Yeah, fly the flares behind the fort, hit it from behind. It needs a shield, it needs a mender, one or both of those. You can't just leave exposed core and expect to, you won't accidentally die due to full assault, but if somebody guides units and intentionally tries to take it, then they're not going to have trouble. This one's got an opening, and all right, yeah, so got that too. So those pink flashes on the flares, that's the pulsar shields. Pulsar shields are wonderful on flares. It gives them double the hit points. It really multiplies the effectiveness of doing these flare attacks every 30 seconds. All right, yeah, this is that's easily takeable up there, and this is Taron. So that was his poly factory. Googly Goo has a tendency to put defensive turrets inside of ordinary schematics. That is a decent idea, and could arguably go either way. That's not what I do, but the reason I don't do it is probably more having grown up playing on V6 and the way that you don't need to have any backfield defenses because you're going to make a fort line somewhere and they have no way of getting back there whatsoever unless you're losing. It looks like he's giving up. He's taken all of his side scatters and deconstructed them a little bit. So letting me come through. And my response to that being, I want to make sure I actually get the kill here, because that's a reasonable person to have on your team. And with several other quite good players around, I definitely want the player advantage. So there it is. There's the invite. I know he's not gonna, immediately empty out all my resources and ruin everything or put me into a brownout. So now he's on my team. Alright, Taron has his flares. I see them heading off. I'm doing my attack. I have also found great success in controlling armies defensively. A lot of that is just making sure that you have bodies in the way so that shots hit units instead of hitting the core. But there's also some pushing kinds of things that you can do which are really interesting and much more effective than tsunamis. And since he's so far from his cores doing that, he took a lot of attrition hits. That's an empty core. I'll let it do its attrition hit and then swoop back in. I've just instructed Googly Goo that he's on eco duty, and I'm going to spend the whole time touching units. I am getting some nice victory battles against Taron. That was very nice to take because that was his main flare factory, so that's going to really weaken his ability to try and fight back. I also want to make sure that I'm sort of paying attention to what he's paying attention to, because if he takes things and starts building forts into them, then they're going to get a lot harder to remove. Like, his basic defense is already exceeding what we've seen earlier. He's got the shield, and the shield does a lot of good. The two swarmers are also very powerful against everything that's low tier. Okay, this looks like I am setting up a arc to try and hit that Taron Hex. It's actually, I shouldn't bother going after that because it's got no economic value right now. I do get the shield, I get some hits on the guns. I probably should have flown through it, maybe, or increase the size of the arc. But this is also inadvertently getting to another benefit of having those flare factories. As productive as they are, I can blow an attack like that, and it's fine. I've got another one ready to go in another 40 seconds. He is rebuilding the lower one that I hit. This time I'm going after this one from the side. This might be something that it would be good to hit the power and get the shield down instead of shooting through it. But I do get the forward movement there. So I see that RZ is getting closer to me, so I want to get at least some buffer from the left direction. This is a constructive criticism that I would have for RZ's gameplay right now is he should be attacking me very aggressively on that side. I can definitely not do good combat attention on both this border and against Taron at the same time. I would end up probably with less effective attacks on whichever one I chose to go after, but doing a lot more defensive stuff. Okay, I think I'm gonna try for another arc here. That very well might be a waste, but I do have some buffer on the left side, and that's also going to give me an easy visual indicator of if I actually need to worry about something over here, since most players would try and avoid life support losses from flying too far away from a friendly core. RZ, it turns out, is not as hesitant to do that and is just going to fly past those. He will be suffering the life support losses while he does it, but it will offer some setbacks. Yeah, I keep doing the G select and getting into polys. So I'm gonna have to end up in a mode where every time I do a unit select, I'm automatically like taking out the polys, and there'll be megas later. Ooh. Not quite. So there's Surge Swarmers, at least a pair on each of those cores. They're not soft targets. But I can inch closer. Oh, player, assassinate, assassinate, assassinate. Oh, come on. Okay, well. The assassination didn't work, and he got a swarmer down. So I had to give up. He should be building defenses into that. That would do a lot to slow me down. Hey, there's an assassination that works. Yeah, there's some physical control. So if I use a tight ball of flares, then I can push the other flares off of the core, and it makes less of their shots actually. It makes them easier to block the shots. Some poly assassination, but the thing that's really making forward progress at that moment is the spare ground forces, which are now just sort of accumulating, and I'm not really using them anymore or have a plan for them. So moving those ground units forward, that works just as well as a fort. It'll take more army commitment to actually take that thing back, and maybe we'll stop flipping it back and forth every minute. Should be able to get that. I am gonna end up, if this flare, yeah, those are headed for me. You see an army moving around like that, you know there's a person doing it, and you have to pay attention to it. You can't pan away. Oh, we put an Amogus up there. Hooray. Hopefully that didn't waste too much resources. Hopefully we'll never run out of lead and copper, so that will have made no difference. Yeah, this is hitting attrition. He is doing fast enough to get a swarmer up in there, and you do have to do a lot more damage to a nucleus to take it out. Spare pulsars. Take something easy to take. stage all my flares over the pulsars so they get the nice protective pink bubble. Those are gonna have to shoot through the swarmers. The shields are helping. Stuff's getting rebuilt though. I probably should have went from the other side for the whole thing, then I would have actually taken the hex. Do a little building into this side. Flare rallying. Zeniths. Not enough Zeniths, but it does get my attention. So, 25 minutes into the game, RZ is actually thinking about attacking me now. I'll have to do more looking back to the left and right side. Or maybe even choose to focus him down because he's not all paranoid and hardened against constant flare raids, which are pretty much the only thing that I have available tactically right now. Yeah. If he's got to watch me and pay attention to my army that closely, then he's not working on things economically and not moving forward. So no Mender there. So that damage is going to stay and make the next attack easier, even though shards really are so squishy that upgrading them sometimes makes a lot of sense. Yeah, one of the things that I noticed from watching the stream from Googly, I'm not paying attention to any locations that a split-second hunch has said, like, don't pay attention to that, it's not important. Like, there's that green player in the middle, right below my void hexes. That's a one hex wonder. I don't need to pay attention to that player. They're not going to launch any significant attacks. They're probably barely going to even get glass or start mining thorium or something. There's a 30% chance there's a router chain in that hex if I went and looked for one. All right, the damage from earlier coming in handy, and I might even be able to get some free poly kills. No, they're out of there. So his flares comes back. I see there are megas being built for me now. Okay, cool, that's nice. Yellow zeniths, not a huge pile of them yet. Get some of this building into it going. Now, I'm also sort of instinctively presuming that Taron is distracted by whatever's happening to his south, because there's a player with a lot of territory further to the south of Taron, so I'm expecting he's doing a two-front thing, much in the same way that I am. You start making zeniths down there. So the flickering shields makes me like, oh, do I need to check power? What's going on? Oh, didn't see that attack coming in soon enough. Lost some very large and dense schematic. So that's clearly a schematic design choice of Googly Goo, is to do everything with the core unloader. All the way up through sand. Not just any individual resource, but whole chains are smushed into there, which I do sort of do, but when I do that, I tend to do it without the core unloading aspect because something's supposed to be operating independently of resource levels. Yeah, some of the damage I did from an earlier raid is lowering his production. I got an attack angle on this. Take out that flare production again. That's a good goal. Got it. And back out so that yeah, they're gonna shoot back and retake that and thin out those remaining flares as the megas show up. So I guess instead of that, I'll have to clear them out myself. Now we have zeniths. That's nice. That's gonna, so rolling in additional unit types like that, there's a good sort of surprise aspect to, continue to G-select, but then just take your flares. Let your zeniths and horizons build up. And then when you actually do bring them in, there's the benefit that you've now got a more concentrated force, and there's the benefit that the person you're attacking is more likely to be caught by surprise since they haven't seen those units coming from you yet. If you make one horizon and you immediately take it and use it, then that's gonna prime them to know that you're moving, higher in attack level than they've seen so far. And they'll more likely to preemptively add defenses instead of trying to add them after it's too late. So the same philosophy of the flare factories, those are horizon factories. So you do a phase overdrive in both because they've both got phase inputs, and just one simple, not even meant to make anything industrially amount phase factory just feeds directly into those. That doesn't have to worry about core unloading stuff at all. Or like an extra belt to do surplus into the core because there's not going to be any surplus. So there was something I missed. That was my early sizable silicon factories. Some graphite, one flare factory, platinum source. Do a little pushing there. I absolutely have to take that back. It's a good thing that he didn't come in and try to build into it, or that'd be a much bigger problem. He still might try to. No, that was a late response. If those zeniths start taking out monos, that could be annoying. But we got all of this back. Megas are keeping the nucleus alive, and I can just pull those surprise zeniths over to make sure it definitely goes away. Gotta make sure that I manually check all the power connections because rebuilding like this has a habit of not actually setting them up. It might also be related to when polys are rebuilding stuff. So he does have some combat capability coming after it. This one he's trying to build into, so it's very important that I take it and put energy into holding this. Should probably bring the flares over for that too. There is stuff to rebuild, and well, none of that is particularly important to rebuild even, since that is all like first hex, very low productivity stuff. There's likely good reason to like at this point in the game, I could go back to my original hex, take everything down, and rebuild it all with like air blasts and overdrives and all that. And the reasoning that you choose to make that decision is whether you are space constrained or not, which we don't seem to be much space constrained as far as construction goes. All right, this one's a timed attack. Send the zeniths first and cover some of the distance so that both unit types arrive at the same time. So now that I've taken a damaging attack again from RZ, like, okay, well, let's probe things on this side of the map and see if I can focus down, and then I'll go back to Taron later. Yeah, so launching zeniths, seeing the one group shows me that the other group is there, and I can... Yeah, that was a full army call there. He's not going to be working on taking this out, and I did do some economic damage there. And this is a great jumping off point, you know, if I make sure that I control things to go around. That command there was making sure that that whole army stops above the pulsar factory, so that, yeah, all that's going to get shields now. Oh, Mega is the shortest point, or the shortest route between 2 points should not be over Surge Swarmers. Yeah, he's there. Get there before he starts making that stronger. The Zeniths are doing the tanking and the flares do the damage. And RZ does a die. rznant. rznant. Yeah, okay. So I broke his resolve there, and now it's time to go back to fighting Taron again. Now I'm going to stop being nice and, well, evict. I'm going to evict this green player because I need their land. And there's a nice vulnerable core straight to the south. This will be a jumping off point for, you know, I assume that there's been a lot of hardening on Taron's north border. So if I head down this way, that's gonna probably give me a more target-rich environment. He sees, he is somehow concerned about it. So, knock down the shield and then don't last much longer because that was all stuff that was not gonna survive well against for Surge Swarmers. So we're gonna need some accumulating, and we wanna make it more expensive to take this hex. Extra benefit there. So everything's got 4 Surge Swarmers on it, but there's an extra 5 to the right. This is the first Horizon attack that I'm launching. So as long as the flares get the shield down, then the Horizons have a good hope of actually crunching in there. Yeah, didn't quite get it. He is thinking about expanding to the left. I am going to contest that a bit. He's trying to put damage on it without committing the zenith so that he can avoid the core damage. The megas just repair it all, so sure, yeah. There goes a flare attack right in my field of view. I do not want him getting footholds in that direction. The stuff to the south of Taron with that scan looks pretty thin. Alright, that's a nice rally accumulating there. I'll be able to get something done with that. Alright, Zenith's first, then the flares. Quite expensive, but I still have a sizable army to meet whatever he calls up. An extra benefit of cutting there is that isolates power for those two different sections. Looks like they got power plants in each, but it's probably not balanced. Oh. Well, I'll have to ask him if the pizza was good. So, Taron cut through. He would have kept fighting. He always goes all the way to the end. So there are potential situations where that could have been a spoiler to the game if you chose not to leave. Because someone has so much space to the south there, I expect them to be producing a lot, to have a lot of defenses. So if Taron delayed me further, and there was a person building up to the south, like, going up to T4 and 5 or something, then they could end up getting ahead and come out in a stronger position than me. But now I'm going to start actually attacking down there. We'll see what's actually there. There's minimal defense on the cores, so it's easy to just go in and snipe it out. The megas are a little bit of a trouble with that plan. That is the right time to take that back, but plenty of reinforcements coming in to keep it kept. I actually accidentally brought in the polys, and then they die in the core explosion, like the real one and not the server added one. Too much explosive material in the cores. I've now got 25,000 sand and 40,000 coal and sometimes 0 lead. My economy is doing strange things right now. Now I have 11,000 lead. I used to have 0. There's some very large constructions arriving on my part of the map. So it is, well, to compliment Googly, he's got the right mindset. Like, he's actually here for PvP and looking to beat people and play well. That's the right mindset. He's also got the build your own schems attitude, which is good to have around. I am also infected by that. a constructive criticism for his schematic library is he's using a lot. So he's doing sand and coal core unloading for stuff, which, okay, there are a number of good players that choose to do the sandy, beachy, coastal core. But he's got a lot of coal creation with oil extraction, which is the least efficient way to get coal available. And most of the people that are using sand and coal in the core in that way are getting the coal from air blast deposits, which is a much, much more like energy efficient and effective way to do it. So if you use more oil extraction than you need to, then you either want to be excessively overbuilding power. Well, no, yeah, you have to overbuild power to do a lot of oil extraction, pretty much. And those are resources that could have gone into units or defenses or more factories or whatever else. Like there is the trade-off and marginal advantage thing to think of there. So if he did the same thing in his schematics, but he added more coal air blasting, then he'd end up not needing to build out power as much or things like that. And this is me taking a look at the monsters for the first time. So unit factory, silicon source, graphite source, power, coal source, and it's not running properly. Like if I built this schematic, I would be using that coal that's coming out. I'd be using the oil coal and the sand that's supposed to go into it, like in the pyrite mixers. And instead it's just everything in the core, everything back out of the core. So yeah, there's a bunch of different stuff happening in those at the same time. And it needs, well, does it need, no, those, like that's a fancy route of getting the sand into the core. Like you also take a little bit out to power the oil extractors. If I built that, I would start assuming one air blast of sand, have it embedded in the schematic instead of having a secondary, because why do two placements when you can do one placement? Like that's a trip back to the schematic. That's more typing in your library to get the right thing. And then you got to place and orient it again. You have to do a little fiddling with the platinum belts because it's hard to get them like automatically fitting into it without like turning it left or extending it one block or something. No. Well, with Taron going to get pizza, that actually ends up being sort of the competitive end of the game. Like these are effective defenses built up. Many of these are like these are good schematics. But for being 45 minutes into the game, there should be more down here. Like this person should have been building this stuff but faster and have twice as many factories. Poly counts are low. I want more polys. A lot of that is probably because they're just flying off to die, but So I wasn't able to actually find any surge production left in the player to the south. So this is a running them out of ammo maneuver, which is especially bad given the state of the game where the surge ammo multiplier relative to V6 is now like times 16 because something changed with how burst fire weapons count their ammo. So instead of, each shot is now 4 missiles worth of surge instead of 1 missile worth with the surge. So I cut down the middle, separated the sides. That has a fort, but that's going to attract all the full... So full assault got turned on. That's fine. It'd be either that or massing things up and doing intentional attacks instead of just... Sometimes you just want to build flare factories. Build more flare factories. Let's go. So Googly Goo really, really, really overbuilds power to the point that we've got like surplus 60,000. So when I've got a huge surplus of power and I want to turn it into flares, this is what I use. The actual schematic is 1/2 of that, and you can just flip it and it fits together. I like the mirrored schematics. It gives you more flexibility in how much you want to build. And it's got the input to a phase for phase boosting if you want. Although when I do that arrangement, my goal is to cover all of this with a dome. And our resources are going extremely nutty. Thorium is low, Titan is out. Lead is switching between like 0 and 10k. Sand is gone, which is usually fine by me. I don't want sand in there. Good, it's getting better. But he's probably built a bunch of stuff that expects there to be sand in there, so who knows what factories are stuttering now. When 180 monos isn't enough. Yeah, 0 lead with that many monos and a bunch of megas and other stuff for mining too. I don't know what, he's got to be building something huge everywhere all the time and have a bajillion lead unloaders for this to be how this goes. An 88k silicon. I could have built the core unloading flare factory too. Yeah, so now I'm impatient with the run out of ammo plan because the whole swarmers use ammo so efficiently. So I'm just gonna dive in between these, and that is an easy target. All right, so that gets rid of a silicon factory, build into it. Yeah, with all of these attacking an opponent internally, you should make it a very, very high priority to build some defenses into that hex as soon as you can, as soon as the core respawns to your team. Because when you're getting gutted out, if you can just immediately go and recapture the thing, then that is pretty survivable. Like, I've got one of those instances in this game already. But if they're able to get 2 or 4 surge swarmers into there before your response can arrive or succeed, then you suddenly have to commit a lot of actual forces to doing it. And this may be at a point where, say, your base has been cut in pieces power-wise and you can't reconnect it. Like, your production may be way down because you lost that one particular hex. Nope. I guess the stuff finally ran out of ammo? Maybe. That cyclone's shooting blast, so Surge almost sword didn't get affected. Oh, we're done. We're done. Good game.